Hi. As we continue our journey of the three-legged stool, or the building the sides of a triangle, the base and the sides of a triangle, last time we talked about faith. This time we're going to talk about commitment and coincidence. And it's very important because if you have faith, and they begin to feed off each other. If you do have faith, that gives you the courage to really commit, right? To really commit. And when I say that, some people act like, oh, I commit. They commit to a goal. Let's say they want to get in shape. I'm committing. Yeah, but they don't work out if they're a little bit tired. They don't say no when someone offers them cake. As I record this, it's Super Bowl weekend. There's going to be parties with food. And if, let's say, somebody's really trying to get in shape, they're going to say no to, they won't say no to any of the food. They don't really have the commitment to make it happen. When you see someone that's in absolute physical shape, especially if they're more mature. Sometimes when you're young, you can just stay in shape a little bit easier. But even then, if they're in really, really great shape, you can bet that they're committed to getting that goal. They work out when they're tired. They make time even if they're busy. They have to be strict with their diet. They know what they have to do and they do it. They're committed to the goal. Okay? But very few people ever commit at that level, 100%. Some people say 120 or 130, but even just 100% commitment, where you put it all on the line. There's nothing you left. One of the videos I like to have people watch is called the death crawl, and it's where a coach is getting a kid to do something, but he gets him to do something he doesn't think he can do, right? Because he gets him to commit to do it. And then once he's committed, he's encouraging him, and he didn't know he could do it, but he was totally committed to it. But when was the last time you were totally committed to it? And again, I think in our culture, we hold back a little bit. Maybe we do 75, 80%, you do a good job, but do you do your absolute best, right? When you look at the elite performers in anything, whether it's sports or almost anything, they go all in. They don't leave anything on the field. Again, with Super Bowl coming up, or we can relate to this, and especially in the championship games, you see people at the end of the game or in the playoffs, they're crying. They're just devastated. They left it all on the field, right? But many people don't do that because maybe they have the fear of, what if it doesn't work? Then in the back of my mind, I have the justification. Well, I really didn't try. I wasn't all in. I remember a couple of years ago, a couple of election cycles ago, when these guys were running for president, to be honest with you, neither one, they were senators, neither one resigned their Senate seat to run, which the first thing I thought, they're hedging their bets, right? I'd have been much more impressed either side if they'd have said, I'm resigning from the Senate so I can do this. I'm all in. If I don't win, I go home. That's commitment. It's like the analogy of burning the boats. When the explorer was there and they're trying to get somewhere, he burned the boats because he said, we can't go home, right? We got to accomplish this. Other people talk about, if you cross a bridge, burn it. Then you don't go back. If the bridge is there, you may back up. But how many people get that ability to totally commit? Right? And again, when you look at the high performers, they totally commit. They give everything they got. You see it not in the super elite performers in the military. To get on the teams, you have to totally commit. There's no half-ass. There's no partial. I mean, you're all in. But when you do that in anything, it's freeing. And when you really do it and you understand it, you walk away, win, lose, or draw. I gave everything I got. And it's freeing. Right? Because what also begins to happen, and many of us has experienced, when you totally commit to something, the commitment leads to coincidence. We have faith, and again, when you have faith, when you really develop the faith, it gives you the ability to truly commit, because you think you know it's going to work, so you can commit even more, right? Which feeds back into having faith, and then this cycle goes, and then I think what happens is it builds up this whole wonderful thing of coincidence. So you're committed, you're going toward a goal. Suddenly you meet someone who can help you get toward your goal. That's interesting. I was just reading about this. Have you ever read this book, or have you ever done this? And maybe it'll help you get toward your goal. it's a coincidence. How did I run into this person? Well, I think when you're totally committed, you have the faith, and now you're totally committed, that's what changes your energy pattern. I think that's one of the missing ingredients when people talk about the law of attraction, the law of vibration, or you have to be it before you manifest it. But if it's about the vibration, well, you're shifting your vibration because you're committed toward it, and then maybe that's what's going to attract that person that's a coincidence to get you to go down this path. And we all have stories about that happening. I was blessed several times in my life to have this happen. I was just in the right place at the right time, but I was working towards something, and I wanted it to happen, and I knew it was going to happen. I just didn't know how, which I think we'll close on the last one with desire about how, but I didn't know how, but I knew it would happen. And I was working toward it. I was doing the things I needed to do to make certain things happen. And then boom, I met somebody who led to something else, which led down a different path. Even how I got involved with becoming a trainer, it wasn't really something I was set out to do. I learned the NLP, I'd been a hypnotist. Of course, I'd been a performer and an actor for a long time, so I had that skill set. But then I wanted to do a Firewalk, and I wanted to learn as much as possible about hypnosis and NLP, and I wanted to experience a Firewalk. And I was locked in. I knew I could picture I was going to do a Firewalk, but every time there was a Firewalk scheduled, and Anthony Robbins or several people were doing them this was in the mid 80s. But each time one came up, and it was living in the Chicago area, something was going on where I couldn't get to the Firewalk, right? It's like, yeah. And then suddenly, coincidence, I get the flyer from the National Guild of Hypnotists that they were having a conference in August, and it had a Firewalk at the beginning, which they did for 2-3 years. So I think this might have been the first year. So I go, I'm going. So I get out there, and I do the Firewalk. I had a great time. I did it. It was fun. And then while I was there, I met several people that I developed lifelong relationships with. Elsa Eldridge, and met Dwight Damon, George Bien, the late Jerry. Well, I didn't meet Jerry Kind until several years later. He didn't go to the National Guild to the mid 90s. And I met Don Motten, but I met him in the 90s because they didn't start coming to the mid 90s. But a lot of people I met and know to this day, and it's kind of fun. And then they asked me to speak at the next year's conference. I said that would be fun. Then I went and I started studying how to speak and do some other things, how to structure talks. So I had the faith that it was going to happen. I was committed to it. I was reaching out. I was looking. This is pre-internet, so it wasn't easy to do research. And then this coincidence happened, which led me into the direction I wanted to go. And sometimes the coincidence will give you something better than what you were going for, right? Instead of a 5-foot tree, you end up with a 20-foot tree, right? So again, when you have the faith, which gives you the commitment, then you lock in and you're really committed to it, then the coincidence happens. And again, for many years, I really helped people build hypnosis practices. And people always ask, what's the difference? What's the difference? And I would look for things. There were certain variables, people that had a business background that maybe had some kind of small business when they became a hypnotist were more successful. It wasn't whether they were a therapist first. That seemed to be a factor that mattered. But the biggest thing, looking back on it, when I would see somebody wanted to open a practice and make it grow, was they were committed. They were totally committed. They rented the office, they opened it, they ran ads. They're like, I'm going to make this work. I'm going to make this work. And as soon as it started, once it nurtured, once they got the practice started, it started to pop up into the ether. They committed. They didn't try to do 2 jobs necessarily. They were good to go. And again, it had to do with faith, which fed back into commitment, which could lead to the coincidence of running the right ad at the right time and all this other stuff going. So all of these are the first parts of it. And then it's going to go back to our desires next time. And, when you think about that and you begin to realize the power of it, then you see the feedback, the feedback loop, right? And again, I think people don't commit because there's a fear of failure. Am I good enough? What will people say about me, right? But one thing that helps me is to reframe it in my mind is the people that judge someone that's totally committed to a goal, win, lose, or draw. Let's say it doesn't work out the way the person wants, but something else happens. It's wonderful, right? The people that try to sabotage that aren't the kind of people you want in your life, because people who matter don't judge, and people who judge don't matter, right? And again, you want to get that group of people who are going to nurture you, who support you, who want you to be at that level. You know, that's the kind of people. And one of the interesting things about that group of 5, if you want to get that in your life, whether it's finance or whether it's your business or whether it's your physical thing or relationships, whatever, if you don't have those people, 5 super high performers, the great thing that we have is the fact that our minds doesn't know the difference between a real or vividly imagined event. So what if your standard are people that you just mentally say, this is my core group, this is my core group, whatever it happens to be, all right? So that becomes your core group, right? You put that inside, and that becomes, you hold that, right? It helps you grow. I remember it was kind of impactful. I was in a show with someone, a play, and there was a guy, a very good actor, and he said, well, what's interesting, we were talking about, I think it was preview night, and, or, you know, like a preview. And some people, oh, I'm nervous. There's a lot of actors out there and producers and directors. And he went, man, that's exciting. He goes, because, you know, when I walk on stage, I don't care any night, you know, I always picture in the audience, and he named some names, it's irrelevant. Let's say like Meryl Streep, Robert De Niro, Dustin Hoffman, you know, Newman, late Paul Newman, Redford, those, whoever the actor is he respects, admires, that's who's in the audience. That's who he's performing for. And some people go, oh, that made me nervous. He goes, no, it makes me reach for more. It makes me want to be better, you know? So if you want to be, if you're a hypnotist and an helper, like a lot of my people, what if you get some people you know have thriving practices, trainings, and things? That's your core group, right? You take that to the next level. That is what you want to do. Put that in your mind. And just do that across the board. People to be in shape, your art, your whatever it is, your relationships. So that's part 2, which is commitment, which again leads to those weird coincidences that we all have. Wow, that was weird. I ran into so-and-so. It's how I met the person that we started the Live Free training. I was doing a training. I'd been thinking about, I wanted to do some more with addictions, redo an addiction thing, all based in hypnosis and NLP and EFT, all the cutting edge stuff. Tried a couple times, didn't work, but I kept going. I knew something would happen. I'm doing just a part of a training for someone at a hypnosis training, and the person there had the desire to start an online addiction recovery training. And, you know, that was a wonderful coincidence, or was it? But my energy was there, and then I was in the right place at the right time. And sometimes these things happen in spite of ourselves. So I'd like to thank you for allowing me to share with you. And I look forward to seeing you next time when we talk about desire. Until then, trudge the road to happy destiny.